All right, we got one on. I was hoping Tater Don would be on, but I'm going to check real quick, make sure the YouTube stream camera's right. Tonight we're doing, I love to do, there's a lot of stuff that I love to do. And one of them is, it's bizarre because uh, when you're on YouTube and you do a live stream and you do it so people can watch you, you would think horizontal is always the best, but vertical for live streams on YouTube is seeming to be the way to go. So let's push on that. Let's see. I would be too far. Let's just see. I'm gonna look. Swipe up for next. I'm gonna see what happens if I move over here like this. I move towards that to center myself. Yeah, I think I did. There we go. I'm going to make sure the audio is working. If I move over here like that. All right, we are live on YouTube and Facebook. So tonight, I'm going to go back to welcome everybody. Hey, Tater Dom. Good to see you. Getting close. Once I get more people, I'm going to let you know that we're going to start monitoring the chats on YouTube also. So right now I can't monitor both. It's just our live stream. I get questions sometimes, and I don't know why I sent it to him, but so we're live on Facebook and YouTube. So if you click on that, all right, back over to Facebook. Just seeing who's here on the Facebook. Stacy, Brian, Jason, Dave Mills, Kitty Stillwell. I know Jamie came on right away. Have not seen Walker tonight. I don't know. I think he's someplace that he's not able to come on. So, anyways, so far, let's get this started. Let's get this going. I'm going to start tonight's podcast is the James B. Beam Distillery, and we will start the recording. There'll be a 30 seconds, and then we go right into our theme song. So here we go. Drinking birdies, sipping on some scotch. We get a little wild with short fun and watch. We love what we do with drinking every room, and we talk songs, we love to tell it. Yeah, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, raising to hell, making some noise. Yeah, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, we're here to have fun, you know we enjoy. We're here to have fun, yeah. Welcome back to another podcast of the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. Tiny here tonight. It's a tiny talk. I like to refer to that. That goes way back to Young Nose. He said he called these tiny talks. If he couldn't come to the podcast, I was left to podcast by myself. Now I've got CT whiskey Super Nash, Roxy, all people who can podcast with me, but every once in a while, it's a busy time. This is a busy time with all the graduations. I have to throw out a thank you to Kenny Fuller, who does our theme song, and then also Steve-O, little Steve-O. He basically also does the Alabama song at the end. Check that out. He does a great cover. Listen to that at the end of the podcast. All right, I'm Tiny. I'm a Scotchy Bourbon Boy. We are the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. And remember to check us out, www.scotchybourbonboys.com, for all things Scotchy Bourbon Boys. We've got t-shirts. We've got Glen Cairns. We've got bourbon balls. It's all right there on the website. Check all of our bios. I'm out. CT and Whiskey still need to get me their bios. I'm trying to get it up, but it's almost like pulling teeth, but I will get that up once they get the bios to me. But then also remember to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Make sure that you like, listen, leave good feedback, and make sure that you subscribe. Also, the major podcast formats, mainly Apple, iHeart, Spotify. I mean, if you listen to the podcast, we're on it. So you can find us anywhere. But make sure that you support the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. One of the really cool things to do is leave good feedback, especially on Apple. We'd like to get our rating up a little bit better. Initially, there was some uh, not so great comments or reviews of some people based off of something. Somehow something happened. So if you could just if you like what you're hearing, give us a good review on Apple. We would greatly appreciate it. It helps with more listeners. All right. Jamie's here tonight. So is Walker. So is Terry Dant. Good. Thank you for watching. Really appreciate that tonight. Tonight's podcast is James B. Beam. But before that, you all didn't get to hear the Spirit of French Lick ad on Facebook and YouTube. So the Spirit of French Lick, they are our sponsor. They've been our sponsor from the beginning. They supported us and we support them. Just remember, we've got an upcoming barrel pick coming out of the Spirit of French Lick gift shop. If you want details, contact me on Facebook, anywhere. Just contact me and I can give you the details of that. But then also remember our new sponsor, which is Rosewood Bourbon. And I've been working on this because I'm doing the voiceover for the ad that will run, and I've been working on it. So I'm going to give it a run through right now. Hey, Scotchy Bourbon Boys, Tiny here to tell you about Rosewood Bourbon and Rye. The bourbon that implicated Andy Dufresne in a double homicide he did not commit in the classic movie Shawshank Redemption. Initially produced in California by General Distillers in the 1930s and originally called Lewis Hunter's Rosewood Bourbon. Master blender Jason Giles has brought back Rosewood to you by purchasing plus contract distilling barrels of bourbon in Kentucky and Indiana. Once they mature, he ships them to Texas, where he ages them for at least another summer in the Longhorn heat. The Rosewood Kentuckian blend and the Rosewood single barrels offer a unique bourbon and rye experience. Please drink responsibly and never drink and drive. There we go. I'm getting better at that one. I wish that was a one I could get through, but Rosewood, like I one of the reasons why we brought Jason on is because the the bourbon and the ryes are really good. Jason has a good palate. His single barrels are phenomenal, and his Kentuckian blend it impressed me initially. When you're dealing with Indiana, we know what we're dealing with, and he also deals with Kentucky, so he's got some good things going on. So that's we've got that covered. Also, I do want to still push Open Bees. So Open Bees is having a bourbon raffle of over 75 raffles. Christy has been spectacular. The Open Bees, what she uses the money for this charity raffle is to help kids with learning disabilities in school with that basically are not getting the help and the support they need. She's helped so many families. You could go to openbees.com and check out that raffle. Please grab a raffle ticket. I mean, realistically, you're donating to a great cause where the money is being very, very well spent, helping kids and families. And it's just if you can give a donation and you end up with a chance to win some spectacular bourbons. She's got the full line of Pappy out there. She's got Stags. She's got George T. Stagg. She's got, the whole BTAC antique line. She's got Stag Junior. I mean, everything. She has these amazing bottles. So you got the shot, uh, and you're helping kids. What more? What more can do you want to do? I mean, it's worth just giving to the charity, but at the same time, you get a raffle ticket and a chance to win a amazing bourbon. So she did it last year, and that it was very successful. This year, she isolated and got a little bit higher end, less bourbons, but more higher end type stuff, top shelf. So I was there. I was saw that collection that she has. It's just amazing, and I can't wait. She's shooting to sell 1,500 tickets by Father's Day. So let's give a push. If you get a chance, please donate to that. And that's, remember, open-bees.com. So that'll get you right there. The As soon as you go there, it says second annual bourbon raffle. So get your tickets, and I support this. This is legitimate. She did it. She works immensely. She works hard, and so Christie's, what she's doing, you just gotta support her. All right, so we've got that, and we're just on a roll, right? Also, I will throw out the Sigador. If you got a chance, it is your own personal humidor. I was able to use that this past 2 weekends ago when I went to Pennsylvania. Brought along my so when I was able to pull it out of that personal Sigador, it's a personal cigar humidor that you take with. It keeps your cigars at 70 degrees, 70% humidity, and it lasts up to, they say 2 weeks, but mine was in there for 4, and it still was 70%, and my cigar experience was spectacular. All right. With that said, we're going to do Jim Beam. So I do have, when I got this whiskey bottle and this whiskey, Michael Jackson's Whiskey, the Definitive World Guide. Michael Jackson, this was the first new edition. He had passed, and they did this in the same style. And it's a great book for referencing different distilleries and whatnot. So I'm going to read about the Jim Beam, because this is probably the best way to get the history out, right there. So I'm going to adjust the microphone. It seems no one remembers from where in Germany the original Mr. Beam came when he immigrated to Maryland, and it was spelled Boehm, or at what stage the name was Americanized to Beam. We do know that the Beam family has supplied proprietors and employees for several of the best-known distilleries to be found in the U.S. during the past 200 years. The Beam's American roots are located in Bardstown, Nelson County, and 2 or 3 adjoining counties. The first distiller in the family was Jacob Beam, who set up in Washington County in 1795. His great-grandson, David Beam, established a distillery in the mid-1800s at Clear Springs, just up the hollow from the distillery that would bear the name of his son, Jim, at Clearmont in Bullitt County. The Jim Beam Distillery at Clearmont was established after Prohibition ended in 1933. Along the way, the company also acquired a distillery about 9 miles away at Boston in Nelson County. Now, that distillery is being renovated right now. That, I believe, is going to be the Booker T. Noe distillery. And the James B. Distilling Company was acquired. Okay, so that in Nelson County. That the James Beam Distilling Company was acquired in 1967 by the conglomerate American Brands, which became Fortune Brands. This became Beam Global in the first decade of the new millennium. It was bought by Suntory in 2014, and the new Beam Suntory Incorporated is now the third largest drink company in the world. That could be bigger because this was from 2019, I believe. The plain, somewhat industrial Claremont Distillery, a 30-minute drive from Louisville, is a major tourist attraction and home to Jim Beam's American Outpost, where visitors can learn about the Beam whiskey heritage and view the historic family home. And he's talking about the improvements that happened in 2012. The improvements that actually happened, they did it again during COVID and reopened right after COVID. And the American Stillhouse, or the American Outpost, is fantastic. The company uses its own sweet yeast with hops. There is plenty of rye mash and backset in the cooker, and in an especially large proportion in the fermenters. Beam distills and barrels at notably lower proofs than other bourbon distilleries, who make a significant contribution to its taste. Now, um, I also know that their yeast is 100% liquid. They don't use powdered yeast, and it's very expensive to use liquid yeast uh, when you're making that kind of volume. So it's something that they've gotten down. When you go there, you see it in the refrigerator. Really kind of a cool thing. The principal Jim Beam version is 4 years old and 80 proof. It is an innocuous dram, soft, medium bodied, with understated sweetness, vanilla, and spice. Jim Beam Black, aged for 8 years, is at 86 proof, is different and distinctive. It is complex, overflowing with oak, vanilla, and fruit, and is a long and balanced dram. In the early 1990s, Jim Beam launched the Small Batch Collection, giving loose definition to a subcategory of bourbon that has energized the industry. The Small Batch Bourbon Collection had the great fortune to have Booker Noe, grandson of Jim Beam, as its roving brand ambassador. Booker passed away in early 2004 after 50 years of making and supervising the production of Beam whiskey. His son Fred has carried the torch for the whiskey ever since, and still is. Freddie, his son, has this past year became a co-master distiller with Fred, and Fred had some health issues, but he's doing fine now, and he basically Freddie is getting set up to start to take over, and so Booker knows in eponymous whiskey was introduced in 1988 as an uncut, natural proof, and non-chilled filter bourbon. In 1992, com- the complex OK Booker's was okay. Okay, let's just say this again. Booker Noe's eponymous whiskey was introduced in 1980 as an uncut, natural proof, and non-chilled filtered bourbon. In 1992, the complex Okie Booker's was joined by three more bourbons in the collection: 7-year-old 107 proof Baker's, fruity toasty dram named after Claremont alums Baker Beam; Booker's cousin, Basil Hayden's, an 8-year 80 proof spicy peppery whiskey with twice as much rye in the mash bill; and the balanced and robust Knob Creek, a 9-year-old 100 proof whiskey named after Abraham Lincoln's childhood home in Kentucky. So there are some other. It's you read on. I believe Old Crow is still made uh, by Jim Beam or Beam and Suntory, but they since gave up the old Taylor brand, and we all know where they gave that brand up to. They gave that brand up to it would be Buffalo Trace. So there's a little brief history. So I have a little history real quick. Can take these off. That was kind of cool. The What got me into bourbon in 2018 is Booker's. Booker's was my first ever sought after, where I mean, initially I didn't know how the hunting worked and everything. And as I was getting into it, before I even started a podcast, I had gotten lucky and been in the store and gotten some Weller's Antique 107. I had picked up some bottles, okay, and then I also met Super Nash, and Super Nash was sending me the bottles. Some of the tailors that he was sending me, he was sending us some samples. But I had loved Booker's, and in the early 2019, Kitchen Table had come out. Booker's Kitchen Table, and I really thought it was cool because it was based off of the kitchen table in the Beam Mansion in Bardstown, where they sat around and they talked about and picked that brand. He would bring home samples. So I was looking for it, and I had saw it a couple times, but I didn't pull the trigger because, back then, 95 or 89.99 for a bottle of bourbon was expensive. I mean, it wasn't like I was coming out of 1999 Jack Daniels or Jim Beam. Those were the expensive bourbons. Those were the top shelves, not these brands. Now, as I started searching for that Booker's, I didn't realize it was a batch, and I just kept looking and looking, and I couldn't find it. Well, I finally found it in Wisconsin, and I got that off the shelf. I do believe I didn't pay 80. I think I paid 74.99 for it. 84.99 for it there in Wisconsin, and got my first bottle that I hunted for, and I was so happy to get it. But I also fell in love with Booker's. That uncut, unfiltered, straight from the barrel to the bottle is what I love, and so that really started me off. Booker's is what started me off, and then I heard about in September of 2018. I heard about the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, so we spent the whole year getting ready to go to Kentucky Bourbon Festival in 2019, and I did a painting. The painting was of Booker, Fred and Freddie, along with Mila Kunis. It's hanging right there with a big bottle of Booker's that was an older bottle, and so I had Fred and Freddie when I went down there. They had a Jim Beam dinner, and I brought the painting. And I met Fred and Freddie that night, and they signed my painting. And I hung out with them in their backyard. It was a great event, super. Back in the 2016, as Robert Lee says, that was his first high proof. It was a first of lot for a lot of people, but I was able to meet them, and then the next night there was the gala, and when I was at the gala, Sandy, which is Fred's wife, was at the gala, and we kind of talked and hung out and got to know each other a little bit there. But also, when I did this painting, I also had a signed painting, a 24 by 36 version of it, and I gave that to them. And Sandy basically hung it up in their kitchen where the kitchen table is, and then sent me a picture. We were talking back and forth on Facebook. And so that was the beginning of the friendship. Got to know Sandy. Her small little dog Pixie was not doing well when I first met her, and then passed. So I offered to do a pet portrait of it, and she had me do it. It sent me a picture. I did a painting of Pixie. It's still, I'm sure she loves it. And that was from that point on. I mean, I've been in their home, and they're so welcoming. And that's one thing that no matter what conglomerate, what big industry giant owns them, Suntory or whatever, the great thing about it is they live in Bardstown. They still live in the Jim Beam mansion that Jim Beam himself lived in, and they've passed this throughout the family. There's two houses next to each other, and while Fred and Sandy now are in this house, Freddie and Kay are in the house next door, and then eventually they would move into the mansion themselves, and that's how the history of it is. But the family experience, they say it, come as friends, leave as family. I mean, it's true. That's exactly, they are very they love hosting and being part of this part of whiskey history, and they embrace it, and they meet so many different people and talk about it, and it's an amazing relationship that they have with the bourbon industry and with the people that drink it. And and I consider Sandy and Fred friends. I mean, we're family, but friends. I mean, good friends. It's something that you wouldn't expect. And so when you go down, and it's pretty much throughout the industry down there, the people down there are just about working hard and liking bourbon and having a good time sharing bourbon with others. And it's just amazing. Honestly, it's amazing. So let's talk about what they're doing there in their brands. Okay, so we talked about the basic brands. So the Jim Beam. So, but each brand seems to have its own spin-off. Okay, so like right now, there's Jim Beam, the basic one, but I've got this one, Distiller's Cut. I mean, then there's the Jim Beam single barrel, and then there's Jim Beam Black, there's Jim Beam Double Oak, and there's Jim Beam Devil's Cut. So these are their blends. I mean, the cuts and blends that they do. And Jim Beam itself is a staple in every bar in America, and I'm sure it's a staple in a lot of bars overseas. But like this signature, there's also a signature cut and a distiller's cut. But this distiller's cut, I've had it for a little bit. I believe I picked this up for $24.99. I mean, how can you go wrong? You get this like a little bit higher level. Now the distiller's cut. Let me tell you. So those are like the basic. That's their basic brand, and so many places have all that, but that's part of like their Elijah Craig, which is a small batch. Then they have their toasted. They've got Elijah Craig single barrel. They've got Elijah Craig barrel proof. They've got all the different expressions. Elijah Craig 18, but this is just Jim Beam's general brand. This distiller's cut is aged 5 or 6 years, and let's see. I'm looking for a proof on it. We know it has to have the proof. Oh, there it is. No. Uh, let's see if I can get some light. There it is. It's 100 proof. So it's a little bit. This distiller's cut is like Jim Beam at 100 proof. So you're getting, I mean, that classic mash bill, which I believe I should have that down in my brain. I want to say it is 78 corn. Let's see. I just will do this real quick because I can. This is the quickest that I can do. Mash. There we go. Here it is. Really? How many mash bills does Jim Beam have? Two different. They're very low rye around 13% and high rye around 27. So here's a traditional mash bill. This is the common mash bill: 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley. So there you go. That is the common mash bill. Now it goes throughout. I mean, throughout the small batch when you're talking about bakers and bookers, and that's the same mash bill, but different versions of what this line is. So I'm gonna take a little sip to see where this distiller's cut goes. I'm gonna put this back here. I mean, it's a 5 to 6 year. The Jim Beam is 4 year. So they don't put stuff out at 2. It could be Kentucky straight bourbon at 2, but they're putting it out at 4. So this is 5 to 6 and 100 proof. So the 100 proof is what's special about that distiller's cut. So anyways, I'm going to put a little water in here. All right. So what's the first brand off of it? And I'm going to grab it right now. Oh, I do have that bar rag. Spilled a little bit of water. I want to get that up off. Here we go. I will put it. The first brand, and I've got an expression of it off of the brand, is, in my opinion, Basil Hayden. Basil Hayden is one of the best selling. I'm going to go back to the Facebook. Let's go back. Facebook. There we are. We're back in. Is the best selling small batch for Jim Beam. This is crazy. Now, this is Basil Hayden toast. But initially, Basil Hayden was out there and they started to do different expressions. But lately, the expressions that they've been able to do, the great thing about this is the bottle. All of you that are out there, you can see that bottle is phenomenal. It's got the brass metal ring on the outside, like it's a barrel with rivets. It says Basil Hayden with the thing. I mean, these bottles are spectacular. The cork is, and they initially had a paper, really cool paper bottle people would buy. This is a great gift for anybody. Now, Basil Hayden is 80 proof, and that stays throughout pretty much everything they do. So initially there was Basil Hayden. Then they came out with their Basil Hayden rye, which was good. And they came up with Caribbean rye. Then all of a sudden there was a dark rye. And then there was Basil Hayden. What the first one was the toast. Then there was subtle smoke. I mean, the different expressions that they've been coming out. This is another example of what Jim Beam is doing to keep up with the competition. But the one thing that they do when they do it is there seems to always be enough. You know, hey, Stacy Stearns, thanks for watching. And this Basil Hayden toast actually is something that I enjoy. I'm just going to do a little bit. I open this. My wife loves this brand, loves this. Loves the toast. That is one that she likes. And the way they get there, this is not the standard mash bill. There's rice. There's a certain amount of rice in this, but it really, the Basil Hayden brand. Then you come up next would be Knob Creek. Now, Knob Creek is really kind of fun because you've got I've got Knob Creek 15 here. We'll set that to that side. Let's see. Yep. I've got Knob Creek 18, which comes in this really, really cool container. I mean, look at that. Oh, you people on, I've had this for a little bit. It's just it's suspended in a box, and you got that, and then you've got your regular Knob Creek 9-year. You've got 9 Knob Creek single barrels, but you also have Knob Creek 12. Knob Creek 12 is delicious, and then I believe I did have it. Let me see. I brought it out, so it should be here. And my first barrel pick I ever went on was for Kentucky Bourbon Festival. It was a Knob Creek pick, which I have that bottle. But I also have this bottle, which is, I will tell you, it is called the Barrel Room Scotchy Bourbon Boy Select. This is at 120 proof. The single barrels can be at 120 proof, but the normal expression of Knob Creek is 100 proof. And then you've got this Knob Creek 12, which I'm going to sample from. This is 100 proof too. And so what I want, with these, the 15. So as you go, people, I got to the last Kentucky Bourbon Festival. I got to finally interview Fred there. You could check that out on YouTube. That's up there. And honestly, interviewing him was really cool because he said when they're doing it, they don't want it to get too woody. So when you're talking about 12, 15, 18. Now, initially, when these single barrels started coming out for Knob Creek, it was amazing because you were getting 15-year single barrels at stores for $45. And then they came out with Knob Creek 15 for $100. And those single barrels at 15 years were some of the best bourbon I think I've ever drank. Now, this 15-year, this is the first year that they did it. I've got it here. It was very oaky. So it's been sitting in there for a while. And so I'm going to put a little bit of that in my Scotchy. Let's just put it in the Jim Beam. I want to just have a little sip of that. You could tell tonight I'm just having like half-ounce pours. And we'll put that back. But their packaging, once again, at Jim Beam is fantastic. So you see this somewhat being copied, but these wood boxes that they produce with the little plastic insert or the suspension are just fantastic. The packaging, we'll get to Booker's and I'll talk about that. I mean, I've had, it's just unbelievable. So there you go. That was the 15 plus this right here, Knob Creek 12, which I'm having a little bit of. No, I'm having the 15 at the moment. Now, it got a little smoky, not so oaky. So the wood tannins have died down on that 15 with age. It'll be interesting to see how much further. Now, I'm just going to go straight to this 12 and see what happens, because the 12 was spectacular from this year. Whiskey bought like 8 bottles of it. Yeah. 12 is much better. Sweeter, a little sweeter, not as smoky, not as oaky, but still has a little bite. So there you go, 100 proof. Now, so after Knob Creek, you go to Baker's. Now, Baker's initially came out with Baker's 107. My wife absolutely loved it. And then they changed it to the Baker's single barrel. And I've got that right here. This is Baker's 7 single barrel. She liked this equally. So we always have a lot of Bakers in here. But the Baker's that is phenomenal, and one of my favorites is this Baker's 13. Now, the first year it came out in this, and I've got the box, but this past year, I was able to, thanks to Stacy Pritchard, not Stacy Stern, sorry, Stacy. Both Stacys, sorry. This is signed by Baker Beam, Fred and Freddie Noe. This 13 is this year's at the festival. This was picked up by Stacy for me when she was running around. She was able to get them all to sign it. I really appreciate that. That's a bottle. I bought an extra bottle so I could drink it because this bottle is special to me. So you got the Bakers. So you got the evolution of Bakers. Now, then there's Bookers. Now, Bookers comes out in batches 4 to 5 times a year. It's been coming out. This is Booker Noe's. What would you say? This is his baby. One of the things that uh, Fred says is that when he was talking to Booker at the end, Booker said, "Don't fuck up my Bookers." That's what he said. So Fred has not. These batches, I've had so many different ones. Out of all the batches since 2019, I want to say, so you got the 5 from 2019, 4 from maybe 4 from 20. 9